All this time, Jack, and you still lied to me? You promised me forever, I whispered as the shovel thudded against the clay, and the sound felt like it was striking my ribs from the inside. If this ever lands on Sweet Revenge Stories, tell them I knew betrayal before the grave cooled. The damp earth smelled like metal and rain, and my gloves cut into the web between my thumb and forefinger, as if grief needed a smaller wound to crawl through. Stand straight, I told myself, because the cold would not do me the mercy of holding me up. I'll carry you to the car, Ethan muttered at my shoulder, his breath white in the rim of mourning, like he could steam away the truth with pity. I can walk, I said, and the hem of my black dress licked sludge, as if it were tasting me for weakness. Jack was pure gold, he added, and the words scraped like gravel against the closed casket's polish. Gold doesn't tarnish in a week, I said, then swallowed it, because the pastor's eyes were soft and the undertaker's hands were already turning to the next sorrow. Inside the church hall, lilies were poured into every corner until the perfume thickened and sweetened and collapsed into something that felt like guilt. Take a breath, sweetheart, my mother said, smoothing the sleeve of my coat with her thumb, and the fabric rasped like a match starting. I'm breathing, I told her, and felt the steadiness of my own voice as if I'd borrowed it from an older, colder woman hidden under my skin. Let people help, the pastor said gently, a hand light on my elbow, the kind of touch that asks a grief to be public and quiet at the same time. I'll let them carry chairs, I said, not the story. The wake moved in soft currents, chairs scraping, teacups grazing saucers, the low tide of condolences rolling in and rolling back. Do you want me to tidy your things at home later? Heather asked, her hand already reaching for the cuff of my coat, her voice thick with honey that sticks to a throat. Later, I said, and my clutch's clasp clicked under my palm like a small lock agreeing with me. Jack told me he worried about you, she added softly, eyes gathering me like a blanket that smells faintly of smoke. He told me a lot of things, I said, because I had learned that grief makes a person polite enough to swallow glass. Excuse me, I added, and moved toward the side hallway where the light pooled low and yellow over the bathroom sign. The stall door latch slid with a tinny little knock, and the air turned tiled and cold and honest. Voice memo, I said, to no one, to my own shaking reflection in the metal, to the woman whose lashes were spiky with the last of dawn. This is Elise, I whispered into the phone, naming myself so the truth would have a spine. Timestamp, I said, and my breath fogged the screen. I buried my husband at dawn, I recorded, and I think he buried me before that. When I stepped out, a buzz rolled across the reception room like the murmur before rain, and someone laughed too loudly, as if to chase the sound away. Eat something, Ethan tried again, pressing a plate into my palm, and the warmth bled into my fingers until I could feel my heartbeat in my thumb. I will, I said, setting it down beside a cluster of lilies whose pollen dusted the linen like tiny bright lies. Can I fix your hair? My mother asked, her hand already lifting, and I let her touch me because sometimes survival is letting one softness through. It's fine, I said, and the word tasted like chalk. The undertaker leaned in to confirm we were ready to move the casket, and in the hush that followed, I saw the corner of Jack's suit jacket edge up where someone had adjusted the lining. Wait, I said, the word catching in the soft lining of my mouth. I smoothed the fabric, fingers tracing the familiar weave he'd chosen for our wedding day because it felt like a promise, and my knuckles brushed something hard against the seam. My fingertips tingled the way they did when I reached into winter water, and I pinched into the fabric and found a hidden slit at the inside pocket. Do you need a moment? The pastor murmured, mistaking the stillness for grief instead of what it was. Clear sight. Yes, I said, and the word bought me a small room inside the larger room. The metal slid into my hand like a coin a magician palms, Cool, slim, wrong. It hummed once, as if pleased to be found. In my clutch, the phone settled against my lip balm, and for a second I saw my own face as a stranger's, reflected in the glossy black. "Ready when you are," someone said, far away, and chairs creaked like old boats. "I'm ready," I said, and the clasp clicked again, like a secret agreeing to wait. At the reception table, my tea tasted sharp and tannic, and the heat slid down to meet the cold knot in my stomach like they were going to war. "Jack loved you so much," Heather said, sliding into the chair across from me like a cat who knows where the sun will be at noon. "He told me you needed rest," she added, and the word rest broke against my teeth. "Rest will come when the day stops lying," I said mildly, and watched her blink as if the light had shifted and she couldn't find the window anymore. Ethan set a hand on the back of my chair. "We'll get through this. Together," I said, and let the syllables be a polite fence. In the hallway again, the fluorescent hum found its pitch, and I leaned my shoulder against the cool plaster until it fed me steadiness through the coat. I unlocked my own phone, took a photo of the secret phone's black screen, where a faint ghost of a notification halo lingered, then another of the serial number etched small on the back. Forward to private, I told myself, and sent the images to an email titled with a word only I used in college. "Backups save lives," my father used to say when he taught me to label the boxes after we moved, and the memory opened a door that let air in. "Don't be dramatic," a voice in my head scolded, and I smiled because fear dresses up as prudence to slow the brave down. In the bathroom again, I tried 3 passcodes: our anniversary, his birthday, the last 4 digits of the old landline. Nothing. I stared at the tiny aluminum ring around the home button, and my thumb went cold in a rush of clarity. "I'm his wife," I whispered, and pressed the pad of my thumb. The phone woke like a small, beautiful lyre. A banner pulsed at the top. "Sunset Office. Are you okay? I'm thinking of you, husband." "Whose Sunset Office?" I asked out loud, and my voice didn't shake, which told me I was moving from shock to something sharper. My throat tightened and then let go. I took screenshots, lock screen, notifications, the contact name, my finger mechanical, the way it is when you unscrew a jar someone else sealed too tight. I forwarded them to my private email, titled the thread, "If I tremble, keep this for me." The phone vibrated again, a small purr against the metal stall divider. "Husband, call me when the service ends. I'm at the studio, doors open, candles lit." The word husband laid itself over the word widow, and both words were suddenly strangers to each other. I swallowed, and the sound was loud in the tiled room. "Okay," I said to the mirror, to the pale woman who had not yet decided if she would weep or hunt. "Okay," I said again, but this time it was a promise. When I stepped back into the wake, the hum of voices stroked the surface of the room like wind over a pond, and the surface held, even if the deep did not. "Everything all right?" the pastor asked, and I let my face be the calm that made other people brave enough to keep being kind. "Thank you for today," I said, and left it there like a flower on a grave. "Let me drive you," Ethan offered, keys chiming like a small bell that wanted to send me home. "I'll have Mom take me," I said, because safety isn't the same as surveillance. Heather appeared with a clear container, soup fogging the lid. "Jack always liked this after long days," she said, and the sentence pretended to be tender while it moved furniture around in my house. "Leave it by the door," I said, and she smiled a little too quickly, like she'd found the hallway she'd been mapping. On the way out, the air hit with a thin knife of cold, and my breath stitched small white seams across it, as if I could mend the morning. In the car, my mother's hands held the steering wheel like prayer. "Home?" she asked softly. "For now," I said, and the secret phone warmed in my clutch like a coal that hadn't decided if it wanted to be a fire. At my kitchen table, the wood grain steadied my palm, each line a small river that refused to run backward. I opened the secret phone again, thumb to glass, and the world presented me with a woman named Scarlett S. wearing the mask of Sunset Office. Scarlett's last message: tonight, the same vow, forever. My mouth went dry, and the refrigerator hum filled the silence with a stubborn kindness, the kind that keeps milk cold even when a house is burning down. I typed a new note to myself: if the truth is ugly, let it be whole. I set a bank alert to ping if anything moved from accounts I knew and accounts I did not. I opened the recorder and said, if I falter, remember the smell of lilies and earth and lies, and walk. My thumb hovered over Scarlett's contact. I'm not crying over dirt, I said into the quiet. I'm crying over the lie in his pocket. Then I saved the note, because agency is a door you hold open for yourself. Heather, where did you hear our marriage was strained? From Jack, she said, eyes soft, voice like a shawl. He wanted you comfortable today. He said grief makes people fragile. I'm not fragile, I said, and my fingers traced the rim of the teacup until the heat found the sore place at the base of my thumb. Let us help, the pastor added gently, the wood of his office door still closing behind him with a modest hush. Help me carry chairs, I said, not conclusions. Ethan hovered by the hallway, jacket still smelling faintly of cold air and aftershave, a tidy winter that tried to put everything in order. Elise, he said, Jack didn't want you to worry about work stuff. Work doesn't call a man husband, I said, and watched his posture flinch like he'd stepped onto a loose stair. What's that supposed to mean? He asked, eyes darting to my clutch like a bird to a shiny thing. It means I'll tidy the kitchen, I said, and moved past him, letting the perfume of lilies scrape at the back of my throat. In the kitchen, the fluorescent buzz pitched up, and the tile chilled through my thin soles until my toes curled inside my shoes. I opened the secret phone with my thumb, and the screen washed my hands in cold light like a hospital room. Scarlett S., I whispered, tapping the contact, feeling the tiny haptic clicks like a heartbeat I didn't trust. Her messages stacked, pet names, tiny plans, a soft geography of a life I hadn't consented to fund. Ethan says you should rest, my mother called from the hall, gentle as a prayer that refuses to meddle. In a minute, I said, taking screenshots in a chain, time, date, words that burrow into linen and stay. I forwarded the chain to Nora, subject line, for later when I'm brave. Timed send, I added, setting it to leave my outbox at midnight, a future me's gift when the house turned honest and quiet. Do you still take honey? The pastor asked, appearing with a small jar like he believed sweetness could anchor a day. I'll take truth, I said, then softened. Thank you. He nodded, eyes searching mine for the kind of wreckage he could fix, and finding instead a building site with stakes in the ground. Back in the hall, Heather's shoes clicked a careful rhythm, a dancer minding the floor. I can drive over tonight, she offered, voice warm. We could go through Jack's closet. It helps, sorting. Sorting can wait, I said. Nothing in there is going to run. Her smile thinned, like thread pulled too tight. Not if the door stays shut, I said. Ethan's phone flashed, and he angled it away, then palmed it like a man smoothing a rough board. You look tired, he said. Let me take your keys for a week. My house isn't grieving, I said. I am. He exhaled, slow. I'm only trying to keep the wheels from coming off. They're bolted, I said, and shifted my clutch higher on my hip, feeling the scale of the secret phone like a coin I wouldn't spend. In the ladies' room, I locked the stall again, the latch a crisp metal tick that sounded like a decision. 3 photos loaded from Scarlett, hands on a steering wheel, a key on her palm, a note that said, "Forever tonight, sunset." I checked the EXIF preview. A timestamp overlapped our last anniversary, and the room thinned until the outline of my hands looked like a drawing. Okay, I whispered and pressed record. Message for Nora. If this is a mistake, stop me. If it's not, hold the line. My thumb hovered over the add contact. I saved Nora under an old joke name we used in college, a breadcrumb no one else would pick up. Bank alerts, I said, switching apps, the small keypad sharp under my fingertips. I set thresholds, named rules, built fences. The stall's chill crept through my calves like water in a creek, and I stamped once, quietly, feeling the loam of the morning underneath even here. I loved the way he tucked my hair behind my ear during storms, I said to the recorder, voice low. I loved the storms less when I learned he planned picnics in them with someone else. I stopped the recording when my throat went tight and breathed through my nose until the air found its way back. When I came out, Heather stood with a paper towel in her hands, like a white flag. I shouldn't have said strained, she offered, eyes liquid. I just meant marriage is complicated. Complicated is a locked drawer, I said. Strained is a crack. Ethan stepped closer, lowering his voice. People talk. Don't add kindling. Then stop striking matches, I said. The pastor cleared his throat, and we all lifted our faces like students called on. We're closing up, he said. The staff needs rest. Of course, I answered, and my voice sounded like a piano key, pressed just once and left to ring out. Outside, the late afternoon had that thin winter brightness that looks like grace and feels like glass. Come with me, my mother said, opening her arms and the car in the same motion. I'll follow, I said. I need 10 minutes. When she drove off, I leaned my back against the church's brick, cool and textured, grounding me through my coat. I opened the secret phone and pressed Scarlett's contact photo until the options rose like bubbles. Message me when you get home, love, a new text flashed, and the word love landed with a soft, ugly thud. I took a screenshot, then another of the thread list with the preview. Husband, call me, studio open. I sent both to Nora. Then I added a delayed send email to myself with the subject, if you dot tomorrow, read this first. The wind found the edge of my collar and slid down my spine like a warning finger. I thought of my father's folded flag, the way the fabric edges were sharp enough to leave marks if you pressed too hard. Tell the truth, even if you tremble, he used to say, and my knees unlocked, with the memory, not because they were weak, but because they'd been braced too long. Ethan's car idled at the curb, window sliding down. You shouldn't be alone, he said, almost a scold, almost a plea. Heather appeared behind him, scarf bright against the gray. We care, she said, and for a second, I believed she believed it. Care is easy, I said. Belief is work. They drove off, slowly, like parents leaving a teenager at a door. At home, the house smelled like cold air and the lemon oil I rubbed into the table last week, a small ritual to keep wood faithful. I set both phones down, my wedding band clicking once against the grain. Passcode, I said, thumb to glass, and the secret opened like it wanted to be air. I scrolled up, a calendar invite, Sunset Studio, keys, consistent with the text. Under it, a draft note, beneficiary, addendum pending. My skin prickled under my sleeves, and I swallowed hard enough to feel the motion tug at the cords in my neck. Okay, I said, and pulled my laptop close. I forwarded the draft to Nora with a simple line. Red flag? I added a contact label to Scarlett, Sunset Office, alias of Scarlett S. I set auto-forward on any future texts from that thread to my private archive. The refrigerator kicked on, a dependable little engine that didn't care about betrayal or bank forms. I poured a glass of water, and it tasted like the inside of a cloud. Cool, clean, uncommitted. My phone buzzed. Nora. Got it. I'm here. Hold steady. Don't respond to her yet. I exhaled, slow enough to keep the air from turning into a sob. I opened a blank note and wrote one sentence. If I tremble, save me. I saved it under a name only I would search first thing in panic. grocery list. When the wind pushed against the kitchen window, the frame creaked like an old boat under a new sky. I'm afraid I loved a stranger, I admitted, voice low, private. I'm more afraid of becoming one to myself. The admission settled, heavy but honest, and then it lightened the next breath, as if honesty had opened a vent. I wiped my eyes with the heel of my hand and squared my shoulders. Work stuff doesn't call a man husband, I said again, this time like a test of the room's acoustics. The room returned the words to me, even, intact. I checked the door lock, slid the bolt, and felt the sure, small click in my bones. I placed the secret phone face down, then flipped it face up. Not tonight, I told Scarlett's unseen candles. Not ever again without witnesses. I set an alarm for midnight to confirm the timed sends went out. Then I turned off the kitchen light and let the hum of the house be the only noise, an honest noise that didn't pretend to love me. Work doesn't send heart emojis and condo leases, I said, and my voice didn't crack this time. Elise, Ethan sighed through the phone, you're grieving. Don't build castles out of calendar invites. Then explain Elise drafted the week of our anniversary and a key ready for pickup at Sunset Studio, I answered, staring at the glow on my kitchen table like it might start a fire. Studio is a co-working space, he said, quick, practiced. He told me he needed somewhere quiet to write. Jack never wrote alone, I said softly. He liked an audience. Ethan went quiet long enough for the refrigerator hum to step closer and hold my breath for me. Look, he said, he asked me to run interference if you stumbled onto work stuff. He said you'd overreact. Overreacting is for fiction, I said. I'm documenting. I thumbed the side button and let the secret phone screen go dark, and the kitchen felt briefly like a theater when the house lights drop. Don't go digging, Elise, he added. Let things settle. Settling is what dirt does. I'm not dirt. I hung up and looked at the chain of messages from Scarlett, each one a thread I could knot or cut. My own phone buzzed. Nora. Received. Keep forwarding. Don't reply. Preserve chain of custody. Chain of custody, I repeated, and the words steadied me like a handrail in a stairwell with the lights out. I opened settings and added an auto-forward rule for every new message from Scarlett's thread, CCing my private archive and Nora's encrypted inbox. Receipts before rage, I told myself, and took photos of the on-screen rules with my primary phone in case the device decided to forget. The blinds clicked as a draft nosed along them, each slate a tiny metronome marking a tempo I could keep. I scrolled higher, a photo of a cabin porch, cedar rail, 2 mugs, a plaid blanket. The caption, Our Forever Trial Run. My thumb pressed and held until the metadata preview blinked up, offering a date that overlapped the night Jack claimed he was sleeping at his brother's. You didn't even hide it well, I said, and the words tasted like rust. A low battery warning flashed, the red bar like a cut reopening. I plugged the secret phone into the kitchen outlet, the cord stiff and cold, and felt the faint vibration travel up into my palm. Eat something, my mother had said earlier. I peeled a clementine now, just to put my hands on something that yielded when asked. The peel snapped softly, a spray of citrus mist kissing my knuckles, and I breathed it in until the sweetness shouldered out some of the metal taste. I won't answer her, I told the humming room. Not yet. A knock at the door made me flinch, the clementine segment slipping from my fingers and tapping the plate like a tiny drum. Elise, it's Heather. Her voice floated, friendly, careful. I wiped my hands and opened the door half on the chain. Leave it by the mat, I said, the chilled air combing the hair at the nape of my neck. She smiled with the kind of tenderness that has teeth behind it. You shouldn't be alone. I could straighten the bedroom. The bedroom is grieving, I said. Let it be messy. She tilted her head. Jack told me you like order when you're upset. Let me help. I like truth when I'm upset, I said. Order can wait. Her eyes flicked past me, scanning the table, the soft blue glow. Working tonight? Family notes. Thank you for the soup. She placed the container down and stepped back, hands rubbing together as if cold could be negotiated with friction. Call me if you change your mind. I will, I said, because there's no law against polite lies when you're triaging your own. When the door shut, I set my phone beside the soup and laughed once, short and mean, because grief had learned a new trick, and it was called manners. Back at the table, the secret phone woke with a buzz like a trapped bee. Scarlett. Tomorrow noon. Lease signing. Ethan says all clear. I read it twice, the name Ethan hitting like a thrown stone. Ethan says, I repeated, and the kitchen light seemed a shade harsher. Another buzz. Scarlett. I know today was hard for you. For her, I mean, but we're almost there. For her, I whispered, and felt the strange hollow comedy of being parenthetical in my own life. I screenshotted both and tagged them with a star in my archive. Then I opened the voice memo app and spoke quietly, the way a person speaks to a sleeping house, so as not to wake the part that might still be kind. Memo 3, I said. Scarlett names Ethan. Lease signing. Noon. My hand steadied as I talked, as if naming things shored up the edges where the day had frayed. I tried Jack's banking app with the same thumb and found myself staring at a login screen that kept the door but not the key. Don't be greedy, I told myself. Be thorough. Another memory surfaced like a coin at the bottom of a fountain, flashing once in the dark water. Jack at the kitchen island, laughing, lifting my chin with his knuckles the night the power went out. Some storms you ride, he'd said. Some storms you steer. I'm steering, I told his ghost, which was just a shape my mind made out of the dark between the fridge and the pantry. The doorbell chimed again, 2 quick notes, and I closed my eyes before I opened the door, because I wanted my face calm. Ethan stood there, hands in his pockets, the porch light turning his breath into a small stage effect. Your mom called me, he said. She's worried. She has a right to worry, but not about whether I can read. He glanced past me, eyes snagging on the glow within. You're working. I'm surviving. He exhaled. Listen, Jack, he wasn't perfect. There we go, I said softly, because something in him had just moved a fraction. But he didn't deserve this suspicion. He worked hard. He loved you. People can love and still lie, I said. He proved both. Ethan's jaw tightened. Don't make enemies you don't need. Is that advice or a threat? It's care, he said. You start poking at things, you risk the insurance, the mortgage. The firm can't. Work stuff, I said, and let the phrase hang there like a moth pressed under glass. He scrubbed his face with a palm. Just let me help you keep the practical stable. You can start by telling me what tomorrow at noon is, I said. His eyelid flickered. A small betrayal even a good liar can't tidy. What? Lease signing, I said. Sunset Studio. I don't know anything about that, he said, too fast. Good night, Ethan, I said, and closed the door gently because slamming would only teach the wood a bad habit. In the quiet that followed, I listened to the heating kick on, a rush, like a distant train in a tunnel. I opened the laptop and mapped a timeline on a blank document. Dates, texts, calendar invites, bank pings I could see from our joint records. I dragged the cabin photo into it and annotated the metadata. I added a line for the beneficiary addendum pending draft I'd found and felt my stomach tighten like a fist. Don't guess, I told myself. Prove. I set the printer going, the warm pages sliding into my hand like a soft stack of resolve. The ink smelled faintly sweet, and I thought how justice is sometimes just a well-labeled folder. I slipped everything into a manila envelope and wrote in block letters, Elise, receipts. My phone buzzed. Nora, you're doing fine. Don't contact Scarlett. Early tomorrow, we'll talk options. I wrote back one line. If I doubt, remind me. She replied, I will. I stood at the sink, the stainless steel cool under my palms, and let cold water run over my wrists until my pulse settled back into a steady, honest drum. A street light threw a pale rectangle across the floor, and I stepped into it, just to see if being seen would change anything. It didn't, but I felt my spine lengthen as if the light had weight. On impulse, I scrolled to the top of Scarlett's thread and recorded the entire conversation, using the screen recorder, my finger steady, my breath measured. I saved the file to the cloud and named it something boring. Receipts_utilities_Q1. I smiled at the small, quiet pleasure of being methodical. The secret phone pulsed again with a calendar reminder. Sunset Studio, Keys. I took a picture of the reminder with my primary phone and then wrote the address on a yellow sticky note in thick black ink that bled a little. Tomorrow, I said to the note, not a confrontation, an observation. I laid the sticky beside the manila envelope and turned off the overhead light, leaving the softer lamp to keep watch. As I walked down the hall, my toes read the coolness of the wood floor like braille, and I let the sensation anchor me to this house, this life, this body. In the doorway of our bedroom, I paused. The bed was made the way I like it. Tight corners, smooth cover, a promise kept even when the day failed at others. I'm afraid, I said into the dark. I'm afraid that if I pull on this thread, I'll unravel what was good. The silence didn't argue. It just offered me the soft rustle of the duvet when I sat. I'm more afraid of letting a lie define me, I added, and that sentence landed with enough weight to tilt the scales. I set an alarm for 9 a.m., another for 11, and one labeled Just Breathe at 8:30, because sometimes survival is scheduling breath. Then I lay back, fingers pressed to my sternum, feeling the rise and fall like a small boat on water I could finally read. In the near sleep, I saw the cabin photo again, the mugs, the blanket, and I wanted to hate the person who'd taken it. Instead, I hated the man who'd made two women believe the same sunrise was theirs. The thought didn't make me bitter. It made me calm. Righteous calm, the kind that comes when math balances. Tomorrow, I said into the room, I'll see the studio. The heater clicked, the house sighed, and I slept without dreaming of him. I buried him at dawn, I said, palm on the cool metal of the studio door. He buried me long before that. The sign above me hummed, neon soft, a low electrical purr that made the hairs on my forearms rise under my coat. Inside, the air smelled like fresh paint and citrus cleaner, a new life scent laid over an old life lie. Hello, I called, and my voice brushed the high ceiling and came back smaller. Candles flickered along a shelf, the little flames twitching when the door latched behind me with a rubbery hush. Can I help you? A woman asked, stepping out from behind a canvas. Scarlett, I said, and my mouth did not stumble over her name. She blinked, then smoothed her expression like a hand over rumpled linen. You must be Elise. I am, and the word felt like a weight in my throat that I set down very carefully. I'm so sorry, she said, voice soft as wool. I lit candles for him. You texted my husband during his funeral? I said. Her mouth parted, shock arranged neatly, as if she'd practiced. I didn't want to intrude. You did. You just didn't want witnesses. She glanced toward a back hallway. This is a workspace. Maybe we should talk where the lights are bright, I said, moving 2 steps in so the neon hum threaded through my breath. She folded her arms, nails pale pink, the kind of tidy care a person gives herself when she plans to be seen. Jack and we're planning Elise, I said, tomorrow at noon. Keys ready. Her eyes narrowed and then softened again like a lens hunting focus. He told you? He told me by hiding a phone in his suit, I said. She winced, then tried on a sad smile. He was protecting you. From his life, I said. A man across the hall leaned out of a door marked office, keys jangling. You here for the transfer? Scarlett brightened, pivoting. Yes, tomorrow. Not without him, I said, and the words were even, like the line on a level. The landlord looked between us, reading a script he hadn't been given. This about Unit 4B. He paid in cash, said paperwork after. He trailed off, eyes catching on the black band on my left hand. After his funeral, I said, he died without telling you I exist? The landlord's mouth tightened. He said he was sorting things. Sorting is for closets. This is a lease. Scarlett touched the landlord's sleeve, the gesture a sweet little nudge. We can handle the details. He wanted 2 forevers. He paid in cash to hide one. The landlord cleared his throat, practical discomfort settling in his shoulders. Cash is cash, but transfer requires paperwork. If there's a dispute, I said. Scarlett sighed, a measured exhale. Elise, I know you're hurting. Jack told me you struggled with closeness. He said you turned cold last year. Heater broke in January. We slept in hats. Maybe he mistook wool for frost. Her lips twitched. He wanted warmth. He found it. You found a man who promised 2 women the same sunrise, I said. She shook her head, sympathy curving at the edges. He was my true partner. In what? Rent? Lies? She straightened, chin up. In building something real. Real things don't need aliases, I said. Sunset office? A shadow moved at the open door. A neighbor with a potted fern peered in, eyes bright with curiosity. So you're the second woman? She said, as if reporting weather. Scarlett turned quick. She's mistaken. I'm the wife, I said, and the fern leaves trembled like they'd caught a draft. The neighbor blinked. Oh, she shifted the pot. He said, never mind. What did he say? I asked, not sharp, just clean. That he'd been trapped, they offered, cheeks flushing. That he'd found his person. Those words work on people who need them, I said. She ducked away, the fern brushing the door frame with a soft, papery sound. Scarlett watched her go, and then turned back to me, a steadier set to her mouth. Jack told me you'd twist history. I told you existed by letting your name light up during the eulogy, I said. Her eyes flickered, then she reached for a tissue from a tidy box on the counter, pressing it to her lower lash line without smudging anything. I'm not your enemy. Then stop auditioning for the role, I said. The landlord cleared his throat again, keys jangling like a nervous tell. Look, the transfer we can hold. Without clear beneficiary paperwork, I can't. Hold it, I said. Scarlett's voice dropped, a silk ribbon pulled slow. He promised me the studio. He promised me forever, I said. We can trade broken promises all day. I glanced at my watch and tapped the side button twice, a reflex that wasn't reflex anymore, starting a voice memo I didn't look at. Let's be practical, Scarlett said, palms open, fingers gleaming with a thin gold band that had no right to be where it was. The rent's paid through the quarter. You don't want to waste that. Waste is paying rent on a lie, I said. She took a step closer, her perfume light, green, a note of something like crushed stems. He said you wanted children and then changed your mind. I wanted truth, I said. Then I changed my mind about tolerating anything else. Her smile frayed. He told me you were cold. You prove him right. Cold keeps candles from catching curtains on fire, I said. Cold is control. The neon hummed a little louder, or maybe I just felt it more, a wire under my skin. Where were you the night of that cabin photo? I asked. The one with the plaid blanket? She blinked, slow. You've been in his phone. I've been in my marriage, I said. Her shoulder hitched. He told me the cabin was his brother's. So he kept the lies consistent, I said. He'd be proud. The landlord rubbed his chin. If this is headed to lawyers, I'm freezing the keys until I get a letter. Good, I said. Scarlett turned to him, urgency nicking her tone. You can't. We have a schedule. You have a schedule, I said. I have a death certificate. Her eyes flashed. Don't weaponize your grief. Don't monetize mine, I replied. She inhaled, slow, steadying. Elise, listen. Jack loved me. He said you were practical, that you'd understand what people need. People need honesty, I said. Show me yours. She hesitated, then lifted her chin. He planned to make me beneficiary. He said the studio would be our start. There it is, I said quietly. The landlord's keys went still. Beneficiary? Draft addendum, I said. Pending, not signed. Scarlett's jaw set. He would have. He didn't, I said. The neighbor reappeared, emboldened by gossip's gravity. If you need statements, I saw him bring boxes in late at night. No labels. Thank you, I said, and meant it, because sometimes truth arrives in small, nosy parcels. She nodded, satisfied to be useful, and vanished again. Scarlett's mouth softened, and for a second, something like real hurt showed through the performance. I didn't set out to steal anything, she said. Intent doesn't change effect, I said. She looked at the candles, at the soft light they threw against the blank canvas. He said you were strong, that you wouldn't need him. I didn't, I said, surprising myself. I wanted him. The admission hung in the air, clean, and then anchored me in my own bones. The landlord pocketed his keys. I'll email both of you. No transfers, not with clarity. Email me, I said, and my counsel. Scarlett gave me a look that wasn't pity and wasn't rage, a calculation. Are you going to ruin me to save yourself? I'm going to show the truth, I said. What it ruins, it ruins. She took a step back, then forward again, the indecision a small, honest stutter. He told me he was trapped, she said, quieter. He said you'd moved on emotionally. He told me storms were for steering. He forgot to mention he'd built 2 boats. Her eyes shone and didn't spill. I didn't know about the phone. You knew about me, I said. She dropped her gaze. Yes. The neon stuttered once, then steadied, a thin sound laying a line through the room like fishing wire. Tomorrow at noon, I said. Cancel it. I can't, she said, and then, after a heartbeat, I won't. Not yet. Then we'll do it in daylight, I said. She frowned. What does that mean? It means no more candles, I said, and blew one out with a quick, practical breath. The wick smoked, a thin thread of burnt sweetness rising. She watched the smoke curl and lifted another candle, cupping it. Don't be cruel. I'm being clear, I said. The landlord opened the office door wider. I'll wait for the letters. Expect them, I said. As I turned to leave, the studio floor gave a faint rubber squeak under my heel, the sound of newness that had not yet learned how to hold weight without complaint. In the hallway, a draft ran like a slim ribbon along the baseboards, and I followed it out into the evening, where the air cut clean against the inside of my nose. On the sidewalk, a man in a knit cap glanced at me and then away, the quick look people give when they think they're seeing a story begin. I pressed the side of my watch, stopped the memo, and let the silence confirm what I had captured. Not vengeance, not victory, truth, as plain as a rim with the lights on. At the curb, my fingertips found the cold seam of the car door, and I gripped it until the shake in my hands steadied into grip. I sat, shut the door, and the thunk sealed me into a small, honest world that smelled like old coffee and winter rubber. Say it, I told the steering wheel. Say the part that hurts. I think she believed him, I said aloud. I think that's almost worse. The truth landed, and then it stopped weighing more than I could lift. Drive, I told myself, and the engine answered with a steady, uncomplicated hum. Truth doesn't fear sunlight, I said, spreading the papers across the dining table until the wood disappeared under dates and words. Bank trails don't either, I added, and the printer hummed as if it agreed. I clipped each stack, texts, calendar invites, the cabin photo with metadata, until the piles looked like tidy little hills I could climb without losing my footing. Nora, I said into the phone, I've got threads. I want a net. Send me the timeline, she replied, brisk warmth in her voice. Add exact times. Screenshots with file names, not vibes. Vibes are dead last, I said, labeling images with the precision of a person folding flags. The highlighter's ink smelled chemical sweet, and the cap clicked like a metronome every time I set it down. Beneficiary, addendum pending, I read from the draft note again, each word scraped clean of hope. Drafts don't pay, Nora said. If he didn't sign, it's a skeleton, not a body. I prefer my skeletons where I can see them, I said. I opened the photo of the cabin porch and pressed for the metadata, the tiny pop-up offering the date like a confession. It bleeds into our anniversary, I said quietly. Document it, Nora replied, not because of Scarlett, because of Ethan. Ethan. I tasted the name like a pill you swallow without water. My phone buzzed. Ethan, let's talk. Don't do anything rash. Insurance reviews timing. Keep things clean. Subtle, I said to the ceiling, and forwarded it to Nora with the subject, nudge or threat. Nora, both. He's worried about conflicts. Keep him texting. No calls if you can help it. Text me your worries, Ethan, I murmured, and set my phone to do not disturb for everyone but Nora and Mom. The refrigerator motor kicked on, steady, like a companionable animal bedding down near my feet. The pastor's number flashed. I considered letting it pass, then answered. Elise, he said, voice careful. I found a note Jack left with a hymn list. There's a line on the back. Sunset. I know what it is. Thank you for telling me. A pause breathed between us. I don't know what I believed about Jack, he said. I believed he was trying. I might have been believing his performance. Kindness shouldn't have to audition, I said. If you need a room and a projector, he offered softly, the chapel's free tomorrow evening. I stared at the piles on my table, the tidy topography of betrayal. I might take you up on that, I said. After the call, I opened a fresh document and built the timeline as if it were a spine. Dates down the left, evidence across the right, clean columns, no judgment. I inserted the lease calendar invite at noon, the cash rent note from the landlord, the neighbor's observation, boxes at night, unlabeled. I added Ethan's texts. Keep things clean. Don't risk insurance. Let me hold your keys. Hold my keys, I repeated, and the words sounded like a locksmith whistling off key. I saved the file as Elise_timeline_V1 and then saved it again as Elise_timeline_V1A because the person I was becoming double saved without apology. I slid the printed pages into a binder and wrote in the inside cover, if I falter, read page 1. The paper edges nicked the side of my thumb, a small sting that confirmed I was made of skin and not just resolve. I placed the manila envelope, receipts, on top and set a second, empty envelope beside it, labeled Witnesses. Type receipts if the truth belongs in daylight, I said to the nothing and the everything of the room, and the sentence steadied me like a railing on a staircase. Receipts, I repeated, and the echo in my own mouth was enough of a chorus. A text from Heather blinked up. Are you home? I can drop by. I found a sweater of Jack's in my car from last week. I stared at the words last week until the edges went sharp. I typed, leave it with the pastor. He'll get it to me. Thanks. She replied, of course. You know I just want to help. I did not reply. The house was cooler in the afternoon light, the sun diluted by a high, pale sky, and I tugged my cardigan tighter, the knit catching briefly on the wedding ring. I slipped the ring off, set it on the table, and the little circle clicked against the wood, like a punctuation mark I didn't yet know how to read. Call me, Nora texted. 2 minutes. "I've got a landlord who'll hold keys," I said when she picked up, "a pastor with a projector, a neighbor who watched boxes, a phone with an alias. And Ethan's fingerprints on timing," she said. "Not illegal by itself, but nowhere good." "What's the move?" I asked. "Quiet plan," she said. "No confrontations that risk chain of custody. Stage your evidence, then show it once. Clean, controlled." "In the chapel," I said, and the word did not feel like forgiveness. It felt like acoustics. "Invite who matters," Nora said. "Small, no shouting matches. Let the facts do the shouting. Make sure someone neutral operates the tech." "Pastor," I said. "And document the fallout," she added. "Landlord pauses transfers. Insurance freezes for review. Ethan's firm opens an internal check if you mention his name on lease timing." "Arithmetic," I said. "I can do arithmetic." After we hung up, I walked to the window and pressed my fingers to the cold glass, the chill walking up my bones like stairs. I remembered sitting on a school gym floor at 8, knees pulled up, while a teacher told us storms were just weather, not punishment. I had believed her then with my whole small chest. "I believe in weather," I said now, "and I believe in maps." I sat and drafted an email to the landlord. "Thank you for holding. My counsel will send a letter requesting no transfer pending clarity. Please confirm receipt." He replied in minutes. "Confirmed. No keys until I have something formal." I forwarded the chain to Nora, then printed it, and slid it into the witness's envelope. "Ethan again. I can swing by. We should talk money." I typed, "Put it in writing." He replied, "Not a good idea over text." I typed, "Then it's not a good idea." He didn't answer. I took out the insurance folder and flipped through the crisp pages, the policy number shining up at me like a polite secret. I photographed the key pages and filed them under a new folder, Policies. I added a note. If any addendum appears posthumously, query chain of custody and signature verification. The clock ticked with a small wooden sound, and I listened to it the way a diver listens to their own bubbles in the dark. Strong, not loud, I told myself. When Mom called, I answered before the second ring. "I made stew," she said, the domestic mercy of it landing like a blanket across a cold lap. "In a bit," I said. "I'm building something." "Build it steady," she said. "I'll keep it warm." After we hung up, I set up the projector I hadn't used since a backyard movie night, the cable ends cold and metallic between my fingers. I mirrored my laptop to the living room wall and watched my timeline loom large, clean, undeniable. "Tomorrow evening," I said to the empty room. "Small group. Pastor, Nora on speaker. Not a trial. A reading." I practiced advancing through the slides, pausing on the cabin photo, the metadata, the lease invite, the alias contact. I rehearsed 3 sentences, each pulled like thread through a needle, and nodded. He wrote, "Forever," to 2 women. This is not vengeance. This is arithmetic. The words sounded good in the open air, unadorned, capable. I sat down and let my body feel the chair, the fabric, the weight of me, the steady of me. Fear whispered that I could still be wrong, that evidence can be arranged to look like a story. Then let the facts contradict me. I'll listen. My phone buzzed. "Pastor, chapel at 6 works. I'll run the projector so you can speak." I typed, "Thank you. Keep reactions minimal. We're not performing." He replied with a simple, "Understood." I stood and gathered the papers, sliding them back into the binder, smoothing the cover like skin over a wound. At the sink, I washed the highlighter off my fingers, the water warm now, the soap smelling faintly of lavender. I liked the way the scent nudged the room, not to cover anything, but to say, "Here is another note besides metal and inked." On the counter, the secret phone lit with a final message for the day. "Tomorrow, noon. I'll be brave if you will." I stared at it, at the audacity of borrowed courage. I didn't reply. Instead, I set an alarm labeled Daylight. When I finally put on my coat to go to Mom's, the fabric whispered against my sleeves, a soft sound like paper turning. On the way out, I touched the manila envelope and felt the spickness of it, the edges. Daylight, I said again, because saying it felt like stepping onto solid ground after a long, cold swim. And under the calm, under the planning, something in me shifted from hurt to a quiet, righteous balance that didn't require permission. The chapel smelled like old wood and clean linen, and the projector's fan made a soft, steady whir that felt like a metronome for my breath. "Thank you," I said, voice low, even. "This isn't a trial, it's a reading." The pastor nodded from the side aisle, one hand on the small remote, his face composed the way a good harbor looks when a boat limps in. Ethan sat 2 pews back, jaw tight, coat collar turned up like a defense. Scarlett slipped into the last row, eyes down, a scarf wound soft around her throat, like she'd dressed for mercy. I placed the manila envelope, receipts, on the lectern, the cardboard edge catching for a second on a groove in the wood. 3 sentences, I said, letting each one breathe between the pews. He wrote, "Forever," to 2 women. This is not vengeance. This is arithmetic. The projector clicked, and slide 1 glowed on the wall, the cabin photo. 2 mugs, a plaid blanket, metadata in a neat white box. "Date stamp overlaps our anniversary," I said, my hand steady as I pointed. He toasted forever in 2 rooms. A single murmur rose from the pews, then stilled, the one crowd reaction I'd allow the night. Slide 2, calendar invite, Sunset Studio, Keys, noon. "This is tomorrow's plan," I said, a transfer he paid for in cash before he went into the ground. Slide 3, the contact card, Sunset Office, alias of Scarlett S., with hearts. "He hid a phone in his suit," I said. "It introduced me to an alias." I glanced at the pastor. He kept his eyes on the wall, the remote small and obedient in his hand. Slide 4, a text thread. Husband, studio open, candles lit. "Work doesn't call a man husband," I said. Glass cracked gently behind me. I turned to see the framed wedding photo on the side table, tilt, slide, and drop, the glass kissing the tile with a tidy, irreversible chime, the one groom reaction the room would get. I let the sound settle, then nodded once to the pastor. Slide 5, the draft note, beneficiary, addendum pending. "Drafts don't pay," I said. "They whisper." I lifted the manila envelope and slid out printed timelines, the paper warm against my fingertips, the smell of ink a quiet, competent thing. "This is the spine," I said. "Dates down the left, evidence across the right. If the math doesn't add up, stop me." No one moved. "Landlord confirmed cash rent and will hold keys pending council letters," I continued. "Neighbor saw boxes moved at night, unlabeled." I paused, let the words find each ear, then put them down. "Ethan," I said, looking at him only then, "your texts advised silence to protect insurance and keep things clean." His chin lifted a fraction. "I told you to be careful." "You told me not to look," I said. "You told me to let the money decide what the truth should be." "That's not what he began, and the pastor, without looking at either of us, advanced the slide. Slide 6, Ethan's text on the screen. "Keep things clean, insurance reviews timing, don't risk it." Ethan stared at the words like they'd grown there without him, then exhaled through his nose, a small surrender that didn't want to be noticed. "Scarlett," I said, turning to the back, "you told me he promised beneficiary status and a studio partnership." She swallowed, then nodded once. "He did." "He didn't sign the addendum," I said. "He didn't tell the landlord he had a wife." She lifted her chin. "He told me you were cold." "I'm calm," I said. "There's a difference." The pastor's hand stilled on the remote. Even the projector fan seemed to quiet, the way sound does when it listens. "I'm not here to humiliate the dead," I said. "I'm here to identify the living." Slide 7, a brief list. Actions taken. Auto-forward set. Voice memos timestamped. Timed emails sent. Landlord notified. Council retained. "Agency," I said, "not rage." I heard the smallest intake of breath to my left, the pastor, the officiant of our wedding, a single reaction contained like a flame in a jar. "That's all," I said, and closed the folder with the soft thud of paper meeting paper. Ethan stood, hands flat on the pew back in front of him. "You're burning everything down," he said, low. "No," I said. "I'm turning the lights on. You'll freeze accounts," he said. "You'll drag his name." "Consequences aren't a drag," I said. "They're traffic." He looked at the screen, then at Scarlett, then back at me. "If insurance freezes, your mortgage will be met," I said, "by me, by truth, not by a lie that expects interest." The pastor cleared his throat, not to interrupt, but to mark the moment with a human sound so it didn't float away unnamed. "Landlord," I said, turning toward the aisle where he stood, hat in hand. He raised a folded sheet. "Holding keys," he said. "No transfers until council writes." "Thank you," I said, and the words felt like water after salt. Scarlett rose 1 inch from her seat, then fully, hands at her sides. "What do you want from me?" "The truth you know," I said, "and the lie you believed, both, in daylight." Her mouth trembled, but her voice didn't. "He told me he'd fix the paperwork this week." "He didn't get a week," I said, the sentence landing in the room like a coin on a counter. She blinked hard, then nodded, the smallest bow to arithmetic. Ethan's phone buzzed, and he looked at it as if it might offer him a different room to stand in. "Your firm will want to know if your name appears near a lease tied to a client's disputed funds," I said. "You should tell them before they ask." He flinched, a muscle moved in his cheek, and he gave me a look that mixed pride and resentment in equal measure. "You always did your homework," he said. "I'm done doing it for men who want credit without costs," I replied. The pastor stepped closer to the lectern, a careful, neutral presence. "Is there anything else to show?" he asked. "Yes," I said, and lifted the secret phone, the black glass catching a strip of light from the stained glass window. I tapped play on the recorded memo from the studio, Scarlett's voice admitting promise and plan, my voice steady in response. It played into the quiet, not long, just enough to remove the guesswork. When it ended, I locked the screen and set the phone down as if it were an ordinary object again. "Reaction," I said, softly, looking at no one and everyone. "Consequence is not." I nodded to the pastor, and he powered down the projector. The wall returned to blankness, a clean slate that did not erase what had been written there. The landlord stepped into the aisle. "I'll wait for your counsel," he said to me. To Scarlett, he added, not unkindly, "No access until I'm told otherwise." She closed her eyes briefly, then opened them. "I understand." Ethan's shoulders lowered, some private calculation tipping. "I'll notify the firm," he said. "We'll open an internal review." "Good," I said. He looked like a man who'd found a splinter and wasn't yet brave enough to pull it. The pastor approached, set a hand near the lectern but not on it, as if not to smudge the finish. "May I say one thing?" "One," I said. "Truth is merciful when we stop asking it to be kind." I nodded, because I couldn't add to it without subtracting. People rose, quietly. Coats whispered, the door hinges made a soft, well-oiled sound. No applause, no gasp, no scene. A single murmur earlier, a single glass chime, a single breath. It was enough. At the front pew, I gathered the papers, the cord from the projector cool in my hands, and slid everything back into the manila envelope until the edges aligned. Scarlett waited near the door, scarf unwound now, her throat bare to the evening air that threaded in. "I'll cancel the signing," she said. "Thank you," I said. "I didn't know where the line was," she added, honest in a way that cost her something. "It's the same in every room," I said. "Tell the truth, even if you tremble." She nodded once, then left, the heel of her shoe making a small, final note on the stone step. Ethan lingered. "You win," he said, but it sounded like a man trying out a word he'd never had to pronounce. "I'm not playing," I said. He glanced at the fallen frame on the side table, at the clean break in the glass. "I'll pay for that," he said, a reflex reaching for a wallet that couldn't fix this. "Leave it," I said. "It tells the truth." He gave me a small, reluctant smile that didn't touch his eyes. "You were never cold, you know," he said. "Just exact." "Exact is how planes land," I said. When the last coat slipped through the door, the chapel air felt suddenly larger, the way a room does when a performance ends and a rehearsal begins. The pastor helped coil the cord, the rubber smooth and slightly stiff under our hands. "A luck up," he said. "Thank you for the room," I said. He nodded. "Thank you for the clarity." Outside, the night had a thin edge of frost, the kind that takes grass by surprise. I breathed, and my breath wrote a brief white sentence in the air and then let it go. My phone vibrated, a message from Nora. "Insurance hold placed. Landlord confirmed. Ethan's firm pinged me for a statement. You did it." I typed back, "Arithmetic." Then I slid the phone into my pocket and felt the weight of it settle, not like a burden, but like a tool that had done its work. The chapel door shut behind me with a soft, final latch, and I walked toward the car with a gait that wasn't triumph, wasn't rage. It was steadiness. I met Scarlett at a quiet coffee shop where the windows looked out on a narrow street and the radiator hissed like an old cat deciding whether to trust. "I won't carry his lies any further," I said, setting the manila envelope on the table so the cardboard made a soft, certain sound. She folded her hands, nails bare now, no performance shine. The espresso smell climbed the air in warm ropes, and someone at the counter clinked a spoon against a porcelain cup in a gentle, domestic metronome. "I brought something," I said, sliding the secret phone out and laying it atop the envelope, black glass catching the bleached winter light. Her breath fogged a small circle on the pane behind me before the radiator erased it with a sigh. "You're giving it back?" "It's evidence," I said. "It served its purpose." She looked at it the way a person looks at an object that holds an entire season of their life. "I'm not sure I want it." "You don't have to keep it," I said, "but I won't be the widow of a secret." She nodded, throat working, then reached into her bag and placed a tiny silver charm on the table, initials engraved, S and J. The metal clicked against the wood like a tiny punctuation mark, a period where a question had been. "He bought two," she said. "I found the other in his desk. E and J." "Copy-paste, love," I said, and the words didn't taste bitter. They tasted accurate. She half laughed, half swallowed the sound. "I didn't know I was learning choreography to someone else's song." "You learned quickly," I said. "You also stopped." Outside, a delivery truck idled, low and steady, breath of diesel pushing a thin gray ribbon into the air before the wind unspooled it. "I canceled the signing," she said, palms flat on the table. "The landlord confirmed." "Nora sent me the email," I said. "Insurance is on hold, pending review." Scarlett winced and nodded. I told them what I knew, no embellishment. "That's what daylight asks," I said. She lifted the phone, weighed it, then set it back down. "Do you ever feel like the truth still owes you an apology?" "No," I said. "Truth doesn't owe. It balances." She smiled, small, real. "You're stronger than he said." "I'm calmer than he counted on," I said. We sat in a silence that didn't accuse, the kind that lets a wound bleed clean and then clot without interference. "I'll let you go," she said, standing, scarf loose at her throat. "If you ever want, not friendship, but a wave across a street that doesn't flinch, I'll wave," I said. She left the charm, took the phone, and the bell above the door offered a light, unremarkable note as she stepped into the day. Back home, the house met me with its familiar old hinged exhale, lemon oil faint on the air, winter light pooling on the floorboards like a quiet benediction. The manila envelope went into the drawer with the neat slide of paper finding its shelf. Not buried, not brandished. I stood at the kitchen table and looked at the ring I'd left there the day before, the circle a reflection of a vow that had been spoken and then fractured. "I kept my part," I said, and picked up the ring. I didn't put it on. I placed it in a small porcelain dish, white and clean, beside the spare keys and a folded note card that smelled faintly of lavender from the drawer sachet. At 6, the chapel door accepted my palm again, the wood warmer tonight, the air carrying a lighter, linen-clean quiet. The pastor met me at the aisle with a look that said ceremony without grief. "If you'd like to say a final line," he offered, "a reclaiming." I stood at the lectern and laid one hand on the smooth grain, the other over my sternum, where breath had once felt like a storm and now felt like tide. I reclaim my vows, I said, voice steady. I will tell the truth, even if I tremble. I will not mistake secrecy for love. I will not be the home to anybody's second story. One line, enough. Then silence. Then my own calm heartbeat, counting me back into my body. From the side pew, the pastor bowed his head once, not prayer, not performance, just respect for a sentence that landed where it was meant to. Outside, the air carried that clean, almost snow smell, a coolness that lifted the skin on my forearms and asked me to notice the world. Nora's text blinked. Preliminary findings support you. Accounts protected for review. Landlord formal hold logged. You're clear. I typed, thank you. Then, tell me when to release the binder. She replied, when you're done needing it to stand. At home, I slid the binder onto a shelf, beside cookbooks and tax folders, the ordinary democracy of paper making a place for justice. I made tea, the kettle whistled, then quieted under my hand, steam wreathing my face in a small, private cloud that smelled like lemon and something green. The house hummed. The radiator clicked. Somewhere, far off, a siren rose and fell. Not for me. Not this time. I lifted the tiny silver charm, S and J, and placed it in the dish with the ring, not as a keepsake, as an artifact. I won't curate a museum to his better self, I said. I'll curate a life that doesn't need exhibits. At the table, I opened a blank note and wrote the only 2 words I wanted to see for a while, clean ledger. I put my palm flat on the wood, felt its quiet insistence that weight is welcome when it's honest. A private memory unspooled, first snow with Jack, our boots squeaking like fresh chalk, his hand warm at the back of my neck, our laughter fogging the air into soft, brief ghosts. I let it play, not to torture, but to accept that sweetness existed, even in a story that broke. Then I let it go, as clean as a page turning. The phone buzzed, once. Ethan, internal review opened. I'll keep my distance. If you need anything, practical. I typed, tell the truth, even if you tremble. Then, thank you. He replied with a single dot. Then, nothing. Mom called. Stew's still warm, she said. That soft domestic mercy again, like a quilt kept ready. I'm coming, I said. I'm free now. On the way out, I turned off the lamp, and the house settled, steady and sure, like a body that has decided to heal in daylight. At the door, I paused, hand on the knob, breath steady, shoulders loose, the simple animal proof that I was alive and unburdened. Tell sweet revenge stories what justice looked like here, I said. Then tell yours. I'll be listening.